Hello and welcome to our Celtic State of Mind. It is Friday. My name is Laura Bradburn and I'm joined as always by Tony Haggerty. How you doing, Tony?
I'm very well. Yourself, Laura?
Not too bad. And Jim Orr, how you doing, Jim?
Good, Laura, thank you.
Good. Plenty to discuss today. Obviously, we've got Ange's first proper week in charge. We've got a new contract for Lee Griffiths, and we're going to have a wee look ahead. The Champions League match against Midtjylland edges ever closer, and we don't look any more prepared than we did this time last week. Obviously, apart from the signing of, as you can see in the strap, Osaze Urhoghide, how much Ange had to do with that and how much that was a deal that was already in the offing, we don't know, but we'll discuss it. Before we get to all of that, though, we have the hashtag Guess the Celt, which has become our feature on a Friday for everybody guessing. We got a few weird ones in there. We got a few people, more than one person saying Yuri Jarosik, which I'm not sure why, because to me it was pretty obvious from the lineup of clubs that it was a Russian player, and Jarosik is obviously Czech. No, it wasn't Yuri Jarosik, it was former Chelsea goalkeeper Dmitry Karin, who played for the fantastically named FC Torpedo Moscow. That's not an instruction, that was the actual name of the team, from 1982 to 87. 88 to 91 played for Dynamo Moscow, CSKA Moscow for a year between 91 and 92, then was obviously part of the Chelsea squad from 92 to 99 that became that kind of continental free-flowing style footballing team under Ken Bates, just before the Roman Abramovich era started. He joined Celtic in 1999, I believe a John Barnes signing, but I'll get Jim and Tony to correct me if I'm wrong there. So that was 1999 to 2002, and then he played for Hornchurch down in England for 2002 to 2004. Jim, I'll come to you first. That was one of the main things that I was hearing from people on Twitter about Karin. Obviously didn't play too many games from us, and really is associated with a time at the club that few like to remember, the kind of John Barnes era that was a transitional and not always positive time for the club. What are your memories of that time?
Yep. I'm going to be a quote for the Bible.
Okay. Oh no, have we frozen?
Looks like it.
Oh, Jim. Oh well, we'll crack on. Tony, I'll get your thoughts on it just now.
Is he back? No. Yeah, he's back.
Can we hear you, Jim? Hang on, just having some technical difficulties here.
Can you hear me now? Am I kicked out?
Got you now, Jim. Got you now. Carry on.
Back.
Carry on.
Bible,
Yes.
in the Bible, go on, you geese a kick of your ball, mister, by Anthony Haggerty, available all good shops. The funniest line in Anthony's book, right, spoiler alert here, right, is that he tells a story about he's playing football for the Scottish football journalist, Anthony, against the English football journalist.
Oh dear, we are having trouble today. The internet is not our friend. Paul, if you're watching, maybe get Jim to drop out. Yep, we're going to get Jim to drop out and we'll come back. Tony, Dmitry Karin, what are your thoughts? A negative time at the club for which he's not to blame, obviously, but unfortunately he's very closely associated with it.
I'm going to go only an excuse on you again, and there's a brilliant, I think it's on the radio ones, possibly. And Jonathan Watson's doing his Hugh McIlvanney, and he talks about a player who he came, he saw, he went away again. I think he played 11 games in 3 years, Dmitry Karin. He came, he saw, he went away again, and was famous for wearing long trousers, and Celtic not really achieving anything. And I think in back-to-back games, he lost 2 against Dundee, and he lost 2 against Hibs. He played consecutive games, but never played any game of note, i.e. in Europe or against Rangers. So, you know, he's just a figure that sort of passed go and collected 200.
Yeah.
You know, in the John Barnes era, it's synonymous with failure, isn't it?
It really is, and I think there's an unfortunate situation where you've got players like that who are associated with it, even though they themselves are not perhaps, in any way to blame for the mismanagement of the club. There's certainly players who fall into that category today, I would say, under the same, but I remember, this might not go down well on a Celtic podcast, I am by no means a Chelsea fan, but one of my favourite teams to watch growing up was that Chelsea team that had Poye and Zola and Mark Hughes and all those kind of players, and Karine was very much a part of that team, and so I was quite excited when he signed, even though he was probably always going to be a second choice keeper, not guilty by association more than by cause, I think is the problem with him. Jim, you are back. Can you hear us now?
Am I back? Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Yes, yep, that's grand.
What was I saying? Tony Haggerty. Tony, they put at Wembley for the Scottish football journalists against the English football journalists. And the classic line from the Tony Haggerty book, when describing these players, it was like a who's he of international football. Classic line Haggerty. Karine, Dimitri Karine, would never feature in a who's who of Celtic players, but certainly in a who's he of players. Less than a dozen games. Wasn't he that great? Wasn't he that good? Wasn't he that bad? Some of the Barcas maybe. Most famous for wearing tracky bottoms all the time. You understand that if you're playing a European game in Russia at -20 or the Tony Macaroni, but to wear trackies all the time, he's for the watching, I think. And that should pick another obscure goalkeeper. So with Sanchez Broto the other week, so my money is on either Tony Warner, Ian Andrews in the next few weeks. I actually want to hear Tony because
I'm realising I've got a thing about goalkeepers obviously.
I was actually keen to hear Tony because every time Tony tells a story about an ex-player, we end up greeting. So I wanted to hear that. Dimitri Karine, make us cry, Tony. Make us cry with a great story.
I didn't. That was an impossible choice, Jim. I just said to Laura that I quoted only an excuse. He came, he saw, he went away again. That's all I could really think about it, So that's my thoughts.
Nondescript,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think this choice this week was more based on thinking potentially it was going to be a more difficult guess rather than having very many stories to say. Johnny Doyle, he was not. We didn't really have a lot to wax lyrical about him on, but he was a Celtic player of a certain description for a time of period in the club, so he will be remembered in that sense at least. Moving on to another...
I think you have to consult this wiki. Laura, when you have to consult the Celtic wiki, you know it's not a choice. It's not a good choice, because you can't remember who they were. Johnny Doyle, Bertie Auld. In fact, you said a few weeks ago, defines a Celtic supporter. If you can't tell a Bertie Auld story, you're not a Celtic supporter. So when you pick Bertie Auld and you pick Johnny Doyle, they're dead easy. But Dimitri Karine, Sanchez Broto, you up your game, Laura, up your game.
Well, I'm going for the quiz question. The who was the only player to such and such in the Celtic hoops, and I think that was another quiz question we were thinking about. What's the only strip we've ever released that never actually was worn during the match? And it was the pink one from a couple of years ago with New Balance. So that'll be a good quiz question going forward. But moving on from the past to very much the present. Leigh Griffiths, just before yesterday's bulletin, was announced that he had signed a 1-year extension. I saw a few people saying on Twitter it upholds the charitable causes of Celtic Football Club that Leigh Griffiths got a new contract. Perhaps a little bit unfair. I'm not his biggest fan. I think he is pretty much done at the top level. I think if you look at his statistics, it's probably 3 or 4 years since he's been what you would call a regular goal scorer, but I know you guys are much more invested in seeing him do well going forward. So Tony, I'll put it to you first. Why is this a good move for Celtic? And is it a good move for Celtic?
Well, I do think it's a good move for Celtic. I think myself and King Jim are Leigh Griffiths fanboys. We've stated that before. Now, we've also stated that this is his last chance. The only way Leigh Griffiths can now repay any debt that he feels he may owe the Celtic fan is by scoring goals. That's what he has to do. He has to get fit and he has to score goals. And I think that's the way the Celtic supporters, who were very split on this, but the fans will quickly be won over if Lee Griffiths plays a run of games and starts scoring goals. And everybody can throw all the stats they want about he's not been a prolific goal scorer for the last 3 or 4 years. I get that. Ange clearly saw something in him when he spoke to him and his attitude, and he wanted to give him a new deal. So if in Ange we trust, then he's got a new deal. As Jim Keenan saying, we move on. What's in the past's in the past. This is a new regime. He has to perform now. And if he doesn't perform, he'll be out the door in January, because no doubt there'll be terms in the deal that say he'll have to leave. So Lee Griffiths has no excuses now. He has no excuses. He's let himself down. He's let Celtic down. And he's let the supporters down. He has some bridge building to do. But the best way to do that is to do what Lee Griffiths does best. And we know on form and fit, Lee Griffiths is the best striker in the country. So I think that Lee Griffiths, if he's fit and his attitude's right, he will score goals for Celtic and he'll help Ange get off to a flyer.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I saw a lot of people saying the exact same thing yesterday, and my response to that would be, there are qualifiers there if he's fit and if... But I do agree that on his day, the qualifier being that he's about as good a finisher as you'll find in the Scottish League. Jim, Tony raised a good point there about Ange seeing something in him, about Ange obviously being involved, having spoken to him in making that contract happen. People are going to be watching Lee Griffiths very closely, I think, as a marker for how Ange has an influence on the team. Do you not think?
I agree with my learned friend, Mr. Haggerty there. Everything he says about Lee Griffiths. Some Lee Griffiths fanboy as well, fan old man, as I am these days. I think there's really good reasons to either stick or twist with Lee Griffiths. So I can probably see other people's points of view on this one. And I pick he stays. I think he should stay. And I went on at length last week, which I won't repeat. But the punchline was that the defence rests, Lee must stay. Lots of stats getting banned about last week. You can make stats say what you want the stats to say, and that's coming from an accountant. So you're looking at the goals per season, it's not very good at all. If you look at the goals per minutes on the park, it's very, very good. So you get a fit Lee Griffiths on the park, then he'll do the business. I'm pretty sure of that. I was thinking about football memories. I've talked about football memories in the past. My most current football memory, to be honest, is that I need to be there. I don't like watching games on the TV. I don't feel I have any football memories watching games on the TV. I need to be there. And my last real football memory is standing up applauding 60, 70 yards away from Lee Griffiths with a ball under his arm and his 3 fingers in there, having scored 3 goals against St Mirren. We could have scored 10 that day. We were outstanding. And Lee Griffiths was absolutely outstanding. And I'm hoping my next football memory is I get to the Midtjylland game and Lee repeats the feat, because that's what we need to see. As Tony said, he has to deliver. And I think Ange is looking at the situation. He doesn't have many bodies, so he has to be sensible about the thing. You're going to let Lee Griffiths go, who you know, if you get fit, is going to give you the goals. And I know people will say it's clear since he's scored. Genuine reasons why it's been years. But if you look at somebody to score a goal to save your life, I know that's a kind of cliche, but Lee Griffiths is the guy. Even Celtic were desperate in the past. They bring Lee Griffiths on with 20 minutes to go. Scotland did them thing to take a penalty kick. So the guy is mentally tough. You fit, mentally attuned Lee Griffiths on the park, and he'll be outstanding. The Pepsi challenge is, can you do that? Can Ange actually get him on the park? And I think he's in a no-win situation as well, Lee. I think if he scores the goals, people like me and Tony will say, there we told you. And everyone else will say, well, why didn't he do that last season? So I think he's in a kind of no-win situation. Ange has to kind of think, I need bodies in here, guys who played at the top level, because, brought a young guy in yesterday, and I'm sure we're going to talk about the guys. We've been linked to somebody else who's only 19-year-old, and I know age isn't a big factor, but I think this year, more than any other year, we need battle-hardened, experienced guys in that team to get us through this season. And I'd go after people this season I don't normally go after. If we won the league last year, would I be bothered if Lee stayed or not? No. But I think we're in such a desperate situation this year that we have to look to guys like Lee Griffiths, maybe, as I said, I could well understand people saying he's had his chances and let it go. But if we end up letting loads of people go, how many bodies does Ange have for this game? And is it 2 weeks' time? Just over 2 weeks' time. We need bodies on the park. And if we manage to get by Michelin, I don't think we will. I think reality bites when we play them. If we did get by them, it was me that scored the goal. He's paid for himself in the one game. So as I said, I can well understand the difference of opinion. Stick or twist with Lee Griffiths. I'm going for sticking. Tony's going for sticking. I know you're for twisting, Lauder, but we're older and wiser. So Lee sticks. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think there's fair points on either side. Just before we talk a little bit more about Lee, Moravchik25 commented on YouTube, and thanks to everybody commenting on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter where we are live. His last memorable moment, I say his, it could be, I don't know if it's he or she, but Moravchik25 says last memorable moment was the 95th minute in Rome, the noise, and that's one I'm sure we all remember. Drew MACFC says Lee has to get fit and get sharp. The goals will come if he can achieve that. This is his last chance. I think we're all in agreement with that. Tony, I think part of the reluctance I had to Lee being offered a new deal was I know that it's a necessity for us to have bodies, and you know there's a potential that we don't have enough bodies, and so that he gets a new contract more out of default than choice. But does that not restrict us moving forward in terms of acquiring somebody else, somebody who we may otherwise have been able to bring in that we maybe can't because we've offered Lee Griffiths a deal, or is that me being too negative on that front, do you think?
I think you'll find the terms of this deal will be constructed around the games that Lee Griffiths plays. Mm-hmm. We've vastly reduced terms, but it'll probably be goals, incentivisations in it. You know, so I don't think it will be a barrier to Celtic bringing anybody in. And I think Celtic need someone else to come in. Bearing in mind they've still got a jetty, but Celtic have played their best football with two players up front in the past few years. Everybody knows that. Celtic function better with two players up front. If Ange plays attacking football, which he supposedly does, then surely he's going to play with two players up front, you know, with a wide man or wide men supplying them from, you know, either flank. So I don't know how Ange plays, to be fair, or how he sets up. I'm very intrigued to see what Celtic will look like against Michelin, but I have to say, Ange will live or die by these decisions. This is a decision taken by the manager, because the other day he was supposed to be leaving. People said he'd wiped all, you know, traces of Celtic off Instagram and all this kind of stuff, and it was pure speculation. Nobody knew anything, and then the manager and the player announced it. Well, Celtic announced it, and the manager said he was happy. So, if the manager has watched him in training, he looks fit, or he's shown him something that he thinks, right, I'll give you a new deal. But he probably with a caveat, don't you dare let me down. And if Celtic are going to play the football that caters to Lee Griffiths in an attacking style, then I would say there will be another attacker coming in. And I don't think Ange Postecoglou doesn't know that, or he won't know that. He might give a jetty that a similar kind of chance to see if they can form a partnership. And bearing in mind at this moment in time, Osaze Urhoghide still there.
Yeah.
So, you know, and the best attacking play that Celtic have had in the past couple of years was when Lee Griffiths played up top alongside Osaze Urhoghide. So, you know, they might be the two that start against Michelin. So we'll see, you know, and we'll see moving forward. But I just think the one thing, if you get fit Lee Griffiths on the park, the one thing he'll guarantee is goals. You know, and as Jim said, there's all sorts of extenuating circumstances why he's not scored goals, because he hasn't played a lot. But if you give him the ball, he'll score. He functions in that world, as I've said before. He's very one-dimensional on a football park. You give him the ball, he wants to get a shot away. He wants to score. So he has to play to do that. So you see, all the stats can be manipulated to suit. But, you know, I'm an opinion. When we're now all in with Ange, so if Ange is giving the guy a new contract, then you have to work in the premise, new manager, clean slate, let's go again and see where it takes you. And Lee Griffiths will be the first hunted out the door if he lets the manager down.
I would say so. I think if there's one thing we know from Ange already, it's that he doesn't suffer fools gladly, and anybody who's not meeting his standards will certainly be given short shrift and shown the door before too long. Just to bring up a point you mentioned about Osaze Edouard, I know his contract's coming to near to an end, so a new deal would need to be agreed. But Scott Howe says on YouTube, I think Eddie will stay. Jim, there's a lot of talk about Eddie potentially going elsewhere, but the only one that had any sort of concrete to the rumours was perhaps Leicester, who have of course now signed a £23 million striker. So the likes of that happening is not really as likely as you would have thought. Do you think that we're all speculating about something that might not happen? Do you see Edouard being here next season?
I don't think he will be here next season, but I think a good thing would be if we can hold to him as long as possible towards the end of the transfer window. Because if we've got Eddie, who is focused on the game, and a fully fit Lee Griffiths in 2 weeks' time, that gives us half a chance against Midtjylland, I think. You know, because I think my view was a few weeks ago is who's actually going to play in that game, and we're thinking, I mean, a Yeti on his own up front. But if we've got Griffiths and Edouard up front, then we've got half a chance against Midtjylland. And, you know, if he goes towards the end of the transfer window because he wants to go, then fair enough, because we learned that lesson the hard way last year. When players don't want to be here, I think we should let them go and we try and get the amount of money that we possibly can. And I think that's easier said than done, because we're very quick to say, I get rid of him, but it's a complicated process to actually get rid of a player. You know, there has to be people on either side who actually want to play ball. I remember watching the Spurs documentary, and they were trying to sell Ericsson, and you saw Mourinho and Ericsson and Daniel Levy chatting, and it was such an eye-opener, you know, because they're trying to say Ericsson, well, we've had a bit of X, but that's not good enough for us. We want more than that. And Ericsson just sitting bemused, watching them chat about his. You know, so that's the thing, because, you know, if from a Chris Ayer point of view, we'll only get what people are willing to pay. So we can say we would like to get 20 million for him, but we're not going to get 20 million for him. Do you accept 10 when you think you can get 12 or 13? And I think as football fans, we say these numbers really quickly as if it doesn't matter. You know, it'd be great to get 12 instead of 10. So let's try and get 12. But at what point do you put your hands up and say, well, fine, we'll just take the 10? But I'd be hugely encouraged if we had a fully focused Eddie and a fully fit Griff for that game in 2.5 weeks' time. That will certainly give us a chance. And the same with Ayer, you know. But the other side of the coin, are you that focused for the game? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to get injured. You're going to jeopardise a multi-million-pound move. So a bit of a balancing act there. I think if we keep all our good players from last ones who went on loan, and they're there in 2.5 weeks' time, maybe we'll have a chance. Maybe I'm a bit too pessimistic. But yeah, I think Eddie will go. I think he wanted to go last year. I think it's just about getting as much money as we possibly can for him, and hopefully Ange get to reinvest most of that. I think the big issue that we have is the board won't financially back Ange. And he has to be financially back, because I said last week, all of a sudden the underdog, we've managed to just, you know, flip, and all of a sudden we're underdog. So he has to invest in them. And the news about the season tickets sales is encouraging as well, because there's no excuse now to say, well, if we'd only sold maybe 30,000 season tickets, they could say, well, we don't have the finances. But if they're sold, if there's a season tickets in years gone by, and we sell Eddie and we sell Ayer and we get a few more of them, there's no excuse for not giving Ange a few bob. Not I'm saying we should spend a lot of money, because I think, as I've said before, I think we have to buy smart. It's not about big money signings. I think there's burnt last year, 5 million for Barkas, 5 million for Ayeti, you know, high wages. We get burnt there, so we have to be cleverer than we were last year. But what was the question? I think Eddie will definitely go. I can't see him staying, but if we can keep him towards the end of the transfer market and give us some sort of chance of maybe making the Champions League, that'd be great.
Do you agree, Tony? Do you think there's any chance that we'll keep Eddie, or do you think, like Jim, he's probably on his way and it's a case of holding on to him for as long as we can?
I think he'll be on his way, but if we can hold on to him for as long as we can, and he can be the consummate professional and turn up when you need him, you know, if he plays in the European tie, you know, you're asking him to do a job. You know, because let's be honest, Eddie is still in the shop window. So anything he does will just enhance his reputation and might get some kind of tug of war for him, you know, but he has to earn that move. And so far, Leicester was the only one that was supposedly, you know, a concrete interest. I'm not sure if there's been any other offers or, there's lots of talk and speculation, but there's not been many concrete offers for any of the players, and include Ayer in that as well. Maybe 10 million offers for Ayer, but Celtic are holding out for 12. But as long as Eddie's there, and as Jim says, it's, if their heads are out the door, then it's hard. But whilst they're here, they have to be professional. Mm-hmm. And if the manager picks them, they've got to try, or at least show that they're trying and do what they do best. That's be a professional football player. In Eddie's case, score goals as well. The same with Lee Griffiths. But as Jim talking there, we have to spend wisely. We have to still bring in first team ready players. Mm-hmm. No more projects. No more guys for coach teams or that can be loaned out. Celtic have to bring in first team ready players, and that's what Jim probably alludes to when he means a bit more shrewd. No guys that are going to take time to settle. We want guys that are tried and tested at some kind of decent level who can walk straight into this team, and regardless of their age. I don't mind about age. The guys have got a string of games behind their belt, then if they're young enough, you're good enough. That's the old adage, isn't it? So first team ready players, and I'm sure Ange is vitally aware of that, because it is a big rebuild that we've got coming up. But if you get first team ready players, then you're giving yourself half a chance.
Mm-hmm. And I think as well that I was thinking about the list of players: Lee O'Connor, Kundai Benyu from a few years ago, and others like that. Who's the young guy that went to Queen's Park on loan last season? From
Luke O'Connell.
Luke O'Connell, yeah. They're all on that list. And Ismailia Soro would have been on that list, but look what happened when we gave him a chance. It was one of the shining lights of a certain part of the last season, obviously. So I think there needs to be a bit more faith, and if anything that Ange has said is to come to fruition, he's certainly got that faith, and age isn't a factor to him. So we will wait and see if he lives up to his reputation as far as that's concerned. Joe Glenn on YouTube, thanks for commenting, says Eddie will play, and when he does... and if he does well and gets the move he wants, and we get more money. So that kind of goes back to what you said, Tony, of I've never understood this down in tools that players do, because surely it's in their own benefit to play well and get the move that they want, as much as it is a benefit for the club to get what we can out of the player until he leaves and hopefully be financially rewarded for it. But as far as Eddie's concerned, we hold on to him for as long as we can. Maybe even he helps us qualify for the Champions League, and that helps us pay for the replacement for him. So we'll see. But we'll move on to another point that Jim raised earlier on. Anybody who was watching this week, Dom Mackay has been very much at the forefront of a lot of the Celtic publicity, and one of the things that he was talking about was that we are apparently very close to selling out the season ticket allocation that we have this season. Now, given that a lot of people were perhaps going to see it as a form of protest not to renew their season ticket, the fact that we're nearly sold out is a fantastic reflection on the Celtic support and their ability to back the team. So what he said when he was speaking about it, and this is from the Herald in Scotland, or the Herald Scotland, we've recorded a fantastic level of interest in our season ticket renewals, and yet again we have the highest number of season ticket holders in the country backing a team for the season ahead. A phenomenal figure which is quickly approaching sellout. Last Friday saw the most season tickets ever sold by the club in one day in our entire history. We're all very much looking forward to welcoming our season ticket holders back to Celtic Park very soon, and I'm encouraged by the recent government guidance that indicates a possible return of fans to football in the coming weeks. We will of course keep you updated as we get information from the government and relevant authorities. The positive impact of having our supporters back at Celtic Park cannot be underestimated as we look to a new era with our focus firmly set on a return to winning ways. Now, I thought that was a really encouraging statement for a number of reasons. I think it was a bit more of a positive spin on the impact that Celtic fans can have, rather than Neil Lennon's comments always appearing to suggest that, the lack of fans there was almost to blame for the reason we weren't playing so well, and de facto putting fans at the centre of many of the problems that Celtic were having this season. But Jim, I'll come to you first as a season ticket holder. Got to be encouraging news, not just from a financial point of view, as you said, but from a morale point of view, that there's going to be a pretty much full Celtic Park as soon as possible, because season ticket holders are renewing and they're being uptaken in bigger numbers than ever before.
Very much so, Laura, very much so. I think a lot of people were surprised at that last Friday in terms of selling record number of the season. There was a lot of understandable moaning and groaning last season, totally understandable. And I think at one point on here, if things go the way they're going to go, we might be lucky if we sell 30, 35,000 season tickets. So to get the numbers they've got is quite astonishing. As I alluded to earlier, I think people are just desperate to go to a football match. They're just desperate to be there. And I think watching the Euros this week, with some of the games, that's what football memories are all about. It's about actually going to the games. And I think that was the major point. I think if he'd have said 2 weeks ago, there's no way fans can get into games for the next 6 months, I don't think we'd hold record numbers of season tickets. I think the possibility that in the third game of the season, there's going to be 60,000 people at Celtic Park. Hopefully, if things go to plan. I don't think anyone's thinking that a few weeks ago. And it will just be astonishing to get back, because again, we've had everyone in the world has had a really hellish, 15, 16 months. And the thought of going into a football match and chatting to people and singing, and guys going to the pub beforehand or getting the bus up to, different parts of Scotland or come over my island, all this kind of stuff. People will be so looking forward to that. And if we're getting back some sort of normality, I think it's understandable why people have renewed in such numbers. We just want to get back. We've got the big chap in there. We like the cut of his jib, so we get behind him. That gives us the money to compete. I think fans did realise that if we only sold 30,000 season ticket holders, that's going to hamper the manager straight away. Very encouraged by that, and I'm trying to visualise at some point in mid-August or so, we're all back at Celtic Park, and that'll be a huge step towards normality, because, as I said earlier, watching the games on TV, no crowds there, it's not really football. It's enthusiastic about next season. Obviously, there's 50,000 other people like me who are just dead keen to get back.
Yeah, Tony, Jim raises a really good point there of in a kind of roundabout, backwards way, it's almost as if, regardless of what happened on the pitch, the pandemic has been the selling point for the season tickets, because we do have a hunger there from people, especially the people for whom regular attendance at the football matches during the week and at the weekend was a massive part of their life. They're desperate to get that back, and surely, the events of the past season are almost irrelevant when it comes to season ticket sales if people think they're going to be back in a full stadium by August.
Last season's gone. I don't think you can underestimate how well Ange, Postecoglou and Dominic Mackay came across in their first address. And I'll say one thing. The initial scepticism has been replaced with pure, unadulterated optimism on the back of the way they spoke. 2 guys in tandem seem to be, they're talking the talk, now they need to walk the walk. But there's a real, I've stopped short of saying a feel-good factor coursing with the Celtic supporters, but Ange and Dom are just, in this week, they've realised they are working for a wonderful set of fans who will do their bit and back them. And as Jim says, they're just desperate to get back in and help the team, help the new management structure. And it's credit to the Celtic supporters for forking out large amounts of cash in. I applaud that. You deserve a pat on the back for doing that and doing it again in record numbers, because we've spoken often enough about the time it took to get the new manager in place, and ourselves included were among the sceptics, but we've warmed to it. We've been much more positive in the past couple of weeks, and it's that surge of positivity that's creating that optimism and that hope that we can all move forward in tandem and restore success to the football club. And that the 2 guys who have, I would say, talk the talk, they're still to walk the walk, but they will do their utmost, as Martin O'Neill said when he took the job and stood on the stairs, do his utmost to try and bring success to the football club. And as supporters, that's all we want. And in this moment in time, that's what you're seeing. Seems to be guys that are working hard, which is why people have renewed. and gone, and despite the fact that protesting, I'm not going to renew. It's a drug. They're addicted to it. You know, it's Celtic Football Club. Of course you're going to renew. You know, you're always going to renew. You know, so I go back to optimism. They're optimistic, and we'll see in a couple of weeks when they play the European tie if that optimism takes a dent. But at this moment in time, things seem to be going the right way. Season ticket money's coming in. They're starting to sign players and offer contracts to players who you thought might have been going out the door. So that's that groundswell of optimism that's coming in. Here's hoping that it can continue.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's been an encouraging
also,
start.
Laura.
Yeah, on you go, Jim.
Yeah. I think also, Laura, after COVID, everyone want to go back to the old normal because we love the old normal, and we didn't appreciate how we loved the old normal until we had the new normal. And I just think people just want to get back into football stadiums, meet with people, go for a drink, chat about stuff, not listen to us on podcast, get a chance to chat in the pub about the games, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think everybody's just desperate for that connection. I'm sure. I don't think there's anybody out there who isn't. The opportunity to get back to that kind of normality, and I think that's where the podcast has helped a lot of people. I certainly know that the post-match or the pre-match and post-match coverage that we've done here and other channels have done. A lot of the feedback that I've got have been that, you know, in times where you couldn't get to the pub with your mates, this was a decent enough replacement. It doesn't fully replace that, obviously, but it's been a replacement that will do until people can get back into that swing of things. So, but Jim, I was going to come to you on Robert Baker on YouTube says, I doubt Mackay's vision will become reality. The board will let him down. Now, obviously, he's trying to do a lot of positive things. The Kano Foundation donation that I banged on about last week was really encouraging. The season tickets seem to have had a boost in sales based on his positive spin on things at the conference last week. But do you think do you think the viewer Robert Baker there's got a point? Do you think he's going to be hamstrung by the current board, considering it hasn't really changed very much?
It's a really good question, I think. I think Dom Mackay will have his own targets. Obviously, nobody knows what those targets are in terms of increase in revenues, maybe the charitable foundation thing. I've mentioned there's a few legacy issues I won't bore people with. He's not going to deal with them in day one, like that person in the fan media wanted him to do. He'll come to that at some point in time. If Celtic want to be a modern club, if Celtic want to be a big club, then they have to do certain things. And we haven't done certain things over the past decade or so. Whose fault's that been? Is it the chief executive, the outgoing executive? Is it the major shareholder? Who knows? But there's lots of things I'm sure Dom Mackay would like to modernise the club. And that's the word that he used, modernise the club. And that's a double-edged sword to me, because the more modernisation you can do, that means we're on some state. How do we get to the point we need to do so much modernisation? And then you would then ask, that's a question you'd have to pose to the board, because the board are meant to kind of oversee all this. They're meant to be there, especially the non-exec guys. They're meant to question these things. Why aren't we doing this? And why are you doing this? So you wonder how much of that kind of input in the past, or is it all Dermot Desmond? This is how we do it, and that's it. I'm sure Dom Mackay want to do. One of the things I said 2 or 3 weeks ago or so is about, I'd like my team to be as transparent as possible, to be as honest as possible with fans, as much as they can be. This is what we're hoping to do. This is how we're going to do it. What these are, I've got no idea. Something like Dom Mackay, who also has learned from his previous job and must be looking at areas where we should be earning more money or doing other things. So I'm encouraged by the start that he's made, albeit he only officially took up the reins a couple of days ago, or yesterday. So we can see what happens next. As I say, I'm a bit concerned that there's so much modernisation being. I always remember, Tony may vaguely remember this, when Terry Cassidy came in. Terry Cassidy was Celtic's first ever chief executive, and the Whites and the Kellys brought him in to try and act as a shield between them and the fans. And as part of this Save Celtic campaign, we had a public meeting, Terry Cassidy came along, and he said, you would not believe what I've had to do. Every single part of the club needs looked at. Now, you can maybe substitute that phrase for modernisation, I'd like to think every part of the club doesn't need modernised. I'd like to think that, because if that's what's happening, what the last chief executive do. But to answer your question, I'm optimistic about what he can do, and the board have to back him as well. And I think what people were saying last season is the board maybe needs a bit of a shake-up. We maybe need some new ideas, maybe a bit more diverse board. So I'd like to see that happening. We've got a new chief executive, we've got a new manager in, and maybe, 3 or 4 new board appointments would be no bad thing as well. People bringing new things to the party, because once again, we don't really know what the board do. Somebody tweeted something last week which was dead interesting. It was the lot of scouts that we have, and it was something like 13, was it, Tony? I can't remember. 13 scouts that we had, including Tosh McKinley. I think Peter Houston was one of the. I think he was a first team analyst, and you're thinking, what does a first team analyst do? I don't know what a first team analyst does. It'd be good to know what that job entails. Again, because the more you know about the club, the more you understand about things. Because I think we've been very guilty as fans in general to point the finger of blame at people. And the man with the laptop, because we think, what's he doing with his laptop? And again, I've kind of said, I'm sure that what he does is a good job because he got a pass mark in that internal review. So it'd be good to know, what Dom's 5-year plan is. Doesn't have to tell us how he's going to achieve that plan, but what key markers. And I said months and months ago, the main thing is Europe to me. And if I target for Celtic, it would be that our coefficient is X percentage higher than it is just now. So if we do that, we must be doing good things. So it'd be good to know what Dom's 5-year plan is. The board will back plan.
Well, before I come to Tony for his thoughts on the same question, Jim, the question at the bottom says, does Jim Orr still think we'll win the league? Are you that positive going forward?
It's a 2-horse race, and we should be good enough to beat the other teams. Let's ignore last season. St Mirrens and the Motherwells of this world. And then comes down to Glasgow derbies. What happened last year in the Glasgow derbies is 10-1 in points to major rivals. We need to turn that on its head. And the first time we've got to that is going to come 4 weeks into the season. And that's why I've said I think we need battle-hardened players. And there could be a full crowd at that game. 50,000 people not on their side. And I don't think we should be saying 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds for that game. We need battle-hardened, experienced players. That's the guy. And I think the season will turn on the Glasgow derbies. And if we can come out of Ibrox level on points, then there's no reason why we can't win the league. And I think we'll also make a better fifth last season. And I've said in the past, the team that won the league last season totally deserved to win the league. It was an exceptional season that they had. And I don't think they'll put that many points. They'll not put as many points on the board as they put on last season because it was an exceptional season. And we were really poor. We'll put more points on the board. I think they'll put on less. Whether it's enough to get there, I think it will be close. So to answer the question, there's no reason why we can't win the league next year. But I think the first 6-7 games will be absolutely vital.
Yeah.
Ask me that question after 6-7 games. But for now, no reason why not. Let's be optimistic. Record season ticket sales. We like the cut of Van's jib. Let's be positive.
Absolutely, I'm totally on board with that. Tony, just to go back to the question about the one of the viewers raised about the board perhaps hamstringing Dominic Mackay. Surely he's in a position where he can call the shots and he can modernise in the way that he wants, or do you think there are still people there that hold a bit too much power as far as that's concerned?
Well, the board have brought Dominic Mackay in.
Yeah.
They have to back him. They're saying this is the man to modernise Celtic and take them forward. As Jim says, what extent is the modernisation, what extent does that take place? But if this is their man, then they have to give him the tools to do the job. Mm-hmm. The same way they brought in the manager, they have to give him the tools to do the job. So time will tell. But I agree with Jim. I think the board could be doing with freshened up, with fresh ideas and just fresh faces and fresh people. But who they are, I don't know. Maybe Dom will be able to identify some people that could maybe come on and help him in the board structure, But I just feel that last season we spoke about the disconnect between the board and this Peter Lawwell and the players and the management. So we're starting to put these parts of the jigsaw together, So we have to take small steps, and we always said that when guys like Dominic Mackay came in, we didn't want to hear from them every week. As Jim said, we'd like to know what they do. We'd like to hear them speak when they're talking about, worthwhile figures, i.e. season ticket sales, the accounts and stuff like that. That would indicate to me that, they're doing a good job, because you don't hear from them that often, unless it's to educate you and inform you of what they're actually doing and their plans. If Dom was to come out and tell us his plans, 5-year plan, great. We would. I always get back to Fergus did that. He told us what he was going to do in 5 years. Going to build a team capable of winning the title, and he was going to build a stadium, stuff like that. Going to have a share issue, and Celtic supporters would pay for it, as we've spoken about many times. So if Dom would like to come out and tell us where he sees Celtic in the next 5 years, but I have to agree with Jim. You have to start making inroads in Europe. That defines you as a football club. But it also helps, as you say, with the coefficient, and helps you moving forward, that if you do have a team capable of winning the league, i.e. this season, you're walking straight into a Champions League group stage with 40 million quid at your disposal. These things help. So Celtic have to start pulling their weight in terms of getting results in Europe. It might come too soon for Ange right now. That's fair enough. But moving forward, we have to be a European competitive club as well as a domestically successful club. And I would like to think that Dom and Ange would put that at the top of their list of priorities. In terms of players, I agree with Jim with battle-hardened players, but I just want players that are ready to go straight into the first team. Age doesn't really concern me, because if they're good enough, they'll play. But I get Jim's take on the battle-hardened and experienced guys. I get that too, but I just want them to be ready to walk into the cauldron of Ibrox within 4 weeks against a hostile crowd and be able to cope. Because nothing will prepare you for that, nothing. But if you're a player of repute, then you will be able to handle it, because that's why you're a footballer, because you want to play in those occasions. You want to show what you've got, and hopefully Ange can fashion and mould a team, even that early in the season, that can go to Ibrox and come through unscathed. And I'm not just talking about a draw, I'm talking about going there and actually throwing down a marker, some kind of gauntlet and challenge, and saying, right, we're banging this from early doors. And that's what Celtic and Ange's new look Celtic have to do. They have to go to Tynecastle and win, and they have to go to Ibrox and win within the first 4 weeks of the season, and then you'll get some kind of marker or idea of just how well Celtic could be placed moving forward. And I wouldn't be frightened about that. You embrace that challenge and you meet it head on. You don't worry about that. You just go, right, let's have it. That's the way I would approach it.
I would definitely approach it the same. David Kelly on YouTube says, I think that if we can get some early momentum, we could surprise quite a lot of people. Celtic with momentum is hard to stop, but let's not kid on saying Rangers are terrible. We have to fight for it. I don't think anybody on this podcast, or certainly not myself or either of you guys on the show, have ever said that we thought Rangers were terrible. I think there was a combination of Rangers playing much better than they have done previously and having enough talent to really build a momentum, and then us also having a terrible season. I think it will be closer next season. Whether we can turn it, as Jim says, whether we've got enough to completely flip the differences remains to be seen. But I don't think anybody here is thinking Rangers are a terrible team. It's just that I think we can be better if we can get a bit of consistency under our belt. But first step on the road to success will be the FC Michelin game in just under 3 weeks' time. Is it the first leg at Celtic Park, I think? I'm not entirely sure, but either way, it's first leg at Celtic Park. Tony, I'll come to you on it first. Osaze Urhoghide was announced yesterday as a brand new signing. Obviously a young guy. who I would presume doesn't fall into that category that you suggested of a first team ready player. Liam Shaw would probably be the same, and as would the young striker that we signed a few weeks ago, whose name is already escaping me. Having said all that, and the fact that they don't look as if they're going to come in and immediately strengthen our team, where do you think is most important for us to strengthen, and how do you think we can manage that in the next few weeks before the Champions League qualifiers?
You go through the spine of the team. The whole spine of the team needs strengthened. Goalkeeper, centre half, centre mid, centre forward. There you go. There's 4 for a start. Obviously, the full back areas which we've had problems with in the past, so they need strengthening too. But that for me, that's where Celtic needs strengthening. That whole spine of the football team, and as Jim said, you would reserve your big money for your centre forward, but if you can source, a good goalkeeper, good centre back, and a good centre mid for decent money, who are battle hardened, as Jim said, and have experience, then let's do that. Let's see what the 13 scouts, which I was surprised at as well. Let's see them earn their corn. They should be the ones that should be throwing names in at Ange and saying, look, you should get this guy for such and such a price. He plays for such and such a team or such a league, whatever. But that's when these guys should come to the fore and arm them with a list of candidates and players. I saw yesterday they were talking about Aaron Moy and James McCarthy, guys like that. Don't know if those are names that excite Celtic supporters. You'll just have to see. But again, have to trust the manager's judgment too. The manager will have his own thoughts on those things as well. But if you're asking me where they need strengthening, I think that whole spine is what I would be looking at. And the players that have came in, I would ask the question, why are they not first team ready? If you're signing them. So I would expect them to be able to go into the team and play straight off the bat. Again, I'm not worried about age. If this is a Celtic team in transition, then so be it. The chips fall where they fall, but you're hoping the manager can get into them a system of play and structure and also a winning formula that can take you forward regardless of the personnel. But we have to bring bodies in. We need a competitive team to start in 2.5 weeks and to start the league campaign. So the areas we've identified in there. Go and do it. And if the board and John Mackay and they're all in sync, then he should get the financial tools to go and do it, because the Celtic fans have just paid their hard-earned, and they were told if they didn't buy season tickets then there wouldn't be enough money to spend on players. Celtic fans have done their bit. They're funding this revolution. Go and give the lion's share of that to Ange to take it to the next stage and get bodies in the door.
Yeah, it sounds pretty simple when you say it like that. It's common sense that we need to get out there and hopefully the work's being done. Jim, there's a couple of problems that come with that, with the type of overhaul that we need in the squad and the type of numbers we're talking about for recruitment. It looks more and more likely like Champions League football is going to be a bonus, if it's even a reality at this point. Do you not think?
I think time is not on Ange's side. Unfortunately, that's not his fault. He's just walked in the door. I think in the past few years, the kind of types of players we've brought in are ones for the future. We need ones for the now. We need to bring them in, and we need experienced players. And I get Tony's point about if you're good enough, you're young enough, all that kind of stuff. But I'm a bit concerned when I read the report. Maybe there's nothing in it about going for the young guy, 19. I can't remember where he's coming from. Centre back, 19-year-old with no experience. Maybe a great player, don't get me wrong. Sorry, Tony?
Is that the Croatian boy, Mario Vuskovic?
The Croatian lad, the centre half. He may be the next wonder kid, but he's 19 years old. And for me, that's not the kind of player we want at this point in time. If we're a successful team, you can bring in 2 or 3 youngsters easily into a good team. But Ange's starting from scratch. It's like a blank piece of paper that he's got. And as I said, I've used the phrase battle hard. We need guys who know what they're doing. I said last week, watching the Euros, some of these countries, Switzerland and Austria, different level to us tactically, technically. I think, my personal opinion, that's not a market we should be looking for. I think we get decent value for money in there. You get somebody who's 27, 28, who's got experience in the Super League for a number of years, good solid centre half, two good solid centre halves, two good fullbacks. I think we've got to have to replace the old back four, plus the goalkeeper possibly undertaking. I think the big thing for next season, starting with Midtjylland, is not to lose daft goals. And how you do that is you do that by coaching the players. And he's only got 2.5 weeks to coach the players, and some of them not actually there. And that's why I think he's got such an impossible job on his hands. And I think in focus for the next 2.5 weeks is get the players who he's got at the moment and try and coach them the best he can, not to lose goals. I think offensively, I've said this all last season, I think I've got a very simplistic view of football. I want 4 defenders who defend and a defensive midfield player who defends. I don't want Chris Ayer run from the back 4 but he can't header the ball, or a Chris Julian who hits 60-yard passes but gets bullied on AstroTurf. I don't want that. And earlier, at no point, at any point last season, did I say the team who won the league were a bad team. They're a very good team, they're a very good functional team, and they should be better this year because they'll make signings, and I think they will be better this year. I just don't think there's much points, but that's a different argument. And if I'm saying a centre half, I look across to guys Goldson, Balogun. These are not world beaters, but they're good, solid, no-nonsense centre half, battle-scarred, experienced guys who play within a formation, who are well coached. To me, is what you want in a defence. Nothing fancy, good defence. Offensively, I think we've got enough players out there. The Turnbulls, Callum McGregor's, Ryan Christie, if he stays, Jamesy Forrest, Lee is on his game, Ayeti come good, Eddie if he stays. I think going forward will kind of be okay. My big concern is at the back. And that's what Ange has to sort out as quick as possible, because we went a whole last season and nobody could fix what happened at the back. And if we keep losing daft goals to sixes, we'll win nothing next year. We'll not even come close next year. That's my biggest concern. Sort out the back and be as quickly as possible. Sorry, Tony.
Jim, on that, I mean, nobody had really heard of Goldson and Balogun when they came. I think it's a bit disingenuous to just kind of not say you don't want Mario Vuskovic. This boy's a talent, People have sourced him and reckon he's a talent. And I think he does what he says in the tin. He defends. So I know he's only 19, but, if he comes to Celtic, then I think that's somebody that, could do a job for Celtic. So I would be more optimistic if Celtic signed someone like that to fit the hole in the defence that you're talking about. I get what you're saying about Goldson and Balogun, but well, they were unknown quantities when they came to Rangers. Well, virtually. A lot of people saw maybe Goldson from Brighton, but he never featured too much for them.
If you bring in, I think if you bring in a 19-year-old kid, you have to be putting him into a settled defence with an established goalkeeper, an established centre half, and 2 good fullbacks. A 19-year-old kid and put him alongside Stephen Welsh or the guy for Ross County. We bring him back.
He's got talent; it speaks for itself, Jim. So I'm just, I would rather see somebody in there that kind of knows what they're doing. And if they've scouted Vuskovic and they think he's the real deal, then bring him in. But if they think, like you think that he's too young and it's a risk, then don't. But I'd be inclined to.
I don't think he's too young. I think he'll lack experience, and that's my big concern. I think we need organisers in there. We need people who know exactly what they're doing. Don't have to be coached too much. And I think that's what you learn over time. And it's all about opinions, obviously. I'd rather we're going for guys that maybe 27 and 28 and not paying a fortune for them. But guys know what they're doing. Guys that can defend. Defend first, play football later.
But if he's first team ready at 19, 27 or whatever, so.
But I think we're also buying him with a view to selling him for making a lot of money. Because if we're going to spend the guts of whatever it was, £4 million on him and giving was it 13 grand a week or something, that's what's 3 million over 4 years. We were investing at £7 million in this kid. So we must be thinking we can sell him further down the line, which is fine, it's absolutely fine. I just don't think this season, I think last season was all trying to make history. This year's we're trying to make money. don't bind themselves players further down the line. I just think we need a team, and I'm going to keep using this phrase, obviously, battle-hardened, experienced guys. The guy sounds like a talent. Absolutely sounds like a talent.
I don't dispute what you're saying, but
established back foot. Yeah.
Tony, just before we close things out, I wanted to get your thoughts on. I was having a discussion with a friend about some of the players at the Euros, and as Jim said, there's players of very high quality in teams that you might not consider fashionable that other people wouldn't look at. And I was kind of saying, I can't believe that we can't sell ourselves to these players, that we can't sell ourselves as a club as an opportunity for them to build their own reputation, get an opportunity to play Champions League football when they wouldn't necessarily get to other clubs who would offer that. Do you think part of our problem in recent years, I've heard people also say we go for the obvious overpriced choice rather than the less obvious choice that may be more than happy to come to Celtic. Do you think we sell ourselves short in that regard about the opportunity we can offer some of these players?
I don't think we sell ourselves short. I just don't think we're looking in the right places for players. It's really, we've got 13 scouts. As someone pointed out to us, like called us ignorant. I want to know what they do. What leagues and what players are they watching? Because I keep saying it. You, Jim, and myself could be tasked with watching a league in Europe, 2 or 3 leagues in Europe, and you would come and say to Celtic, right, I'll watch it the whole season, and you would have a list of people for players and positions, every position, the length of your arm, and you could say, this guy, such and such, So what are they doing? Very leagues are into, the Swiss league, the Czech league, Swedish league, Hungarian league, Ukrainian league for that matter, they reached the quarterfinals. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So why are we not looking at clubs, as I keep saying, maybe not Champions League teams, but teams below that bracket, Europa League, 3rd to 8th, 3rd to 10th, and coming up with a whole list of targets. I'll go back to Bobo Baldi came from Toulouse, Rialbi came from AIK Stockholm. Jim says, battle-hardened big guys. I want big guys in my team as well. Mm-hmm. A bit of height presence. Because currently, and I said it in previous pods, we've got a team of midgets. We've got a team of small players. But it's true. We lack height. So if you're going to bring in defenders, I want them to be big guys for a start. Vuskovic is a big guy. I think he's 6 foot plus. And he can play in a variety of positions in the defence. So versatility is good as well. So I'm on board if they're going to bring in Vuskovic, go and get him. If they're not, move on, move down the list. But you have to. What was the problem last season with Celtic? We conceded too many goals from set pieces because we weren't dominant at those. So you got to get. You don't need a genius to tell you need height in your defence. Mm-hmm. And so big guys to win the ball in the air. And also be able to clear it in the deck and do that. I keep going back to the basics. When we get defence that can't master the basics at times, So I think I don't know what's wrong with the scouting system, if there is anything wrong with it. But as Jim said, we need to know exactly what they do, because if there's that many people there, then sure that's 13 people, right? Surely there should be a list. If they all contributed 20 players each, that's over 250 players. Mm-hmm. And so why is it such a problem for Celtic to identify defenders, full-backs, centre-backs? We never usually... We're okay, we can identify a striker and a midfielder, but it's always the defensive positions. Goalkeepers, full-backs, central defenders. And then you look across at the other side of the city, who have never seemed to have that problem. They need a goalkeeper, they go and get one. They need a central defender, they go and get one. I'll go back to the likes of Boomsong, Cuellar, Jockey Bjorklund, Boley. They just seem to pluck them from out the air. So
we'll leave Bert Conterman out of it. But,
well, okay, yeah, there's always but that's what I mean. Balogun, as Jim said there, Goldson.
Barisic is another find, I think. Yeah.
Right, correct. So, and they signed Barisic on the back of playing the team, didn't they? Mm-hmm. In Europe, because they thought he could do a job. So, and there's no better evidence than actually playing against somebody twice. Do you think, you know what, he could do a job for us? So again, I don't know. Like Jim said, we don't know what these people do at the club, but how can we not identify players? I find it staggering for a big club like Celtic, to not be able to do that. And then to go back to it, you have to start acting like a big club. When you're
I think also, Laura, it's not about trying to sell the team. Everything will come back to money. Everything must always come back to money. And I don't know how much these players are getting paid in the leagues that Tony mentioned there. But if the report be believed, and it is none of us at the end of the day, £13,000 a week, how does that compare to the league he's in just now? Because I think for lots of experienced players, that's a lot of money. And I think, as I've said a few times last season, it's difficult to buy the players because obviously we talked about Brian Christie last year in the party. He's like, how does he feel? Young team walks in, he's earning 13 grand, he's getting 8. There's a real balancing act there to be done, I think. I don't think it's about selling the club. If the money's right, players will come. Because the other factors, the chance to play in front of 60,000 every second week, the chance to hopefully play in Europe, maybe the Champions League, those are other factors. But if you're paying somebody the money they want, then they will come. Pay the money and they will come. But as Tony said there, it's actually identifying the players in those leagues. And I think if you find out what kind of money they're on, you don't maybe have to offer somebody 13 grand a week because they could be on 2 or 3 grand a week. You offer them 6 or 7, they'll still come. So that whole thing's a bit of a balancing act for me. But the punchline today was we need players, I think as both said, we need players in now as soon as possible. Guys that can do a job because time is not on our side.
Yeah, I think we'll go forward looking positively towards the start of the season. We hopefully will have more signings to talk about this time next week or the week after. Time isn't on our side, but hopefully fortune is, and we will get there. So thanks everybody for watching today. We've really enjoyed reading all your comments and see that you're chatting amongst yourselves in the comments. It's really good to see. Thanks very much for your time, Tony and Jim. This has been a Celtic State of Mind, and we'll see you all very soon.